and welcome to Business Line. The United States is the only shining light illuminating the global economy for 2015. That's according to the International Monetary Fund's latest forecast, which, not surprisingly, looks quite gloomy overall. A few days before the outlook was unveiled, the IMF chief, Christine Lagarde, said the oil price and US growth are not a cure for deep-seated weaknesses elsewhere. Where exactly? Let's take a closer look at which countries will experience weaker growth this year and why.
Not surprisingly, the International Monetary Fund has cut its global growth forecast for the next 2 years. In October, the IMF projected world growth of 3.8% for 2015, now revised down to 3.5%. In 2016, growth will fail to meet the IMF's initial 4% target and will hit the 3.7% mark.
Basic theme of this update. We have revised US growth up to 3.6%, but we have revised eurozone growth down to 1.1% and Japan growth down to 0.6%.
The exception to the rule is the United States of America, with the IMF saying Washington has well and truly put the financial crisis behind it. The British economy is expected to bump along at 2.4% growth for 2016, while Russia will see its economy contract by 3% this year and 1% next year. America and Asia have stable growth, while the Europeans are still right in the middle of a debt crisis. The economy is going nowhere, so the global economy is being supported by 2 and not 3 pillars, and that is a grave concern for the IMF. The emerging markets are facing problems, namely from high US interest rates. And as growth steadies, governments need to take prudent decisions for the well-being of their economies.
Which economy is the fastest growing in Europe? Germany? Well, not really. The fastest growing economy in the European Union could be Ireland. In 2010, the country took an €85 billion bailout from the EU and the IMF. According to the forecast, it was set to outperform the rest of Europe by almost 6% growth in 2014 and from 4 to 5 in 2015. Greece also received a massive bailout, but the outcome is different. What are the lessons to learn from Ireland? Euronews' James Franey went to Dublin to ask Christine Lagarde this question.
You know, I think in the case of Ireland, there was clarity of purpose. There was focus on financial and fiscal. There was determination. There was ownership by the authorities as well as by many people in Ireland that they wanted to get out of the very deep financial crisis they were in. And I think there was also extraordinary human competence to try to carry it through and deliver the results and the performance and the jobs that are being created now.
From Dublin, Christine Lagarde headed to the World Economic Forum along with our very own Isabel Kumar. She now joins us from Davos. Klaus Schwab, the founder and the executive chairman of the forum, said 2015 is a year when we are at crossroads. Isabel, you were covering Davos last year compared to 2014. What's different this year?
Yeah, hi, Sasha. Well, you know, there does seem to be a lot more uncertainty this year. The World Economic Forum is gathering under this sort of global umbrella title, the new global context. And within that, you have this feeling of being at a crossroads. For the first time, the World Economic Forum identified in its Global Risks Report international conflict as the greatest risk facing global stability, you know, superseding all those economic challenges which obviously still do exist. In terms of leaders, who's different this year? Well, you know, we've got the president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. There's also Turkey's prime minister and the Chinese premier who are also here.
Some call it the most influential economic event. Others say it's a big cocktail party. Are the decisions taken in Davos being implemented, and do they affect our everyday life?
Well, it's certainly influential, there's no doubt about that, because, you know, there's 40 heads of state and government here, and when they're talking, well, they're very likely to make change. And they're brought together with this feeling of shaping the global agenda for the year ahead. And, you know, let's remember that last year, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani came to show a more open face of Iran. And that certainly did influence what happened in terms of foreign policy, at least, over the coming year. How we feel that in our everyday lives, well, that's more difficult to kind of sense, I guess. And in terms of the parties, well, there's certainly a lot of those, but all I can say as a journalist, I don't get invited to enough of them.
The most influential economic event is also the most expensive. To make it to Davos, one should be a member of the World Economic Forum, which costs around $50,000. This year, Switzerland's National Bank made it all far more expensive by the decision to remove the cap on the franc. It's unlikely to stop the fat cats in the snow, as Bono said about the event back in 2006. Those with networking foremost in their minds spent a lot of time at the Davos parties. The Google event is said to be much coveted. That's where many tried Google Glass last year. If you were not among them and didn't try the glass, sorry, you might have lost your chance. The glass is gone and it won't be back anytime soon. This is it. This is IT.
Google Glass is dead. Long live Google Glass. On Monday at midnight, the US search engine giant halted sales of the iconic Smart Specs. News came out after months of speculation, with experts pointing out how the project didn't really take off in the way it was supposed to. Unveiled in 2011, the device was hailed by Google founders as the next big thing. First available only to developers, the Explorer version was then offered to anyone willing to spend $1,500 for a prototype. Maybe the company thought this kind of open beta approach would help develop quickly a less expensive mass market model. What it did instead was reveal a series of issues related primarily to privacy and design. And yet, with more than 40 apps already up and running, Google says the Glass isn't dead. The Glass team will now move out of the garage, Google X Labs, to form a separate division. They will now report to Tony Fadell, the chief of the home automation business Nest, acquired by Google a year ago. The move looks like a gamble, but if there's anyone who can revive the device, it's the former Apple executive who developed the iPod. That was it. That was IT.
And that was it for now. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.